community. Curtis is an engineer with Common Code, and he is here today to tell us how to be helped. Please welcome Curtis. 20 plus 25.
Hey. Now, anyone, I've got to ask a few questions up front. Anyone here use the Django IRC channel on Freenode? Not enough of you. You're missing out. Because not only does Russell hang out there, and I hang out there, and a bunch of other people, lots of people wanting to help you are hanging out there ready. It's free consulting, people. I mean, people pay for my time and his time. You get it free if you come and ask, and be nice and make us want to help you. Which is kind of where this talk comes in. A lot of people make us not want to help them. And you don't want to be those people. As he said, I'm Funky Bob. I'm on GitHub as Funky Bob. I'm on IRC as Funky Bob. I've done a few things for the community. Django Nap is one of the smaller, lesser-known API toolkits, but it's actually grown recently to include RPC, not just RESTful. Formulation is my attempt at a template-based form rendering that is efficient, unlike some of the other solutions. We were part of the team who provided you with the IE7 tax over at Kogan, so that if you tried to check out using IE7, you had to pay extra for making our life a miserable hell. I was awarded the Malcolm Tredinnick Memorial Prize, and I'm very honored for that to be recognized. I met him in 2007 when I got this T-shirt, and he was an incredible person who just made everybody around him feel like doing more. Just the way he spoke enthusiastically and passionately about everything he was doing, everybody just felt like riding that wave of energy and doing more. And I've been helping in Django. I tried to find out how long I've been helping on Ash Django. I went to the online logs, but because of how much I put in, you can't go over 200 pages of searches back, and so that would only take me back to 2012. So I checked and I registered my nickname in 2006, so I've been helping since at least then. I did find Django basically when it became a public project. Why do I help? That's a good question, I feel, basically. And this is part of why I felt very odd about accepting the Malcolm Tredinnick Prize at first, is because I'm just doing what I was taught to do. You help people. But I also find that in helping people, I've been inspired to write other apps and other tools, ideas that I just wouldn't have come up with on my own. I mean, it happens during your work normally, but everybody knows it feels a lot better to do something for everyone to benefit from, not just your employer. I wrote sniplates for somebody who wandered into the channel and said, I'm coming from the Rails background and I want partials in my templates. And I, 2 hours later, I handed him a project, and sniplates eventually became formulation, which is growing in popularity, and if I believe the PyPy statistics, is actually in a lot of use. I learn a lot from helping other people, and you can too. There are certain schools of thought that say that you can't learn enough without becoming a teacher. And one of the big things I learn is what's still wrong with Django. We know it's there. Sometimes it's just the documentation. But since I've been using it for over 8 years, I don't see what's not clear in the documentation. New people do, so that's good. Hello? You got a blank page? No. Yeah, here's some examples of what you're doing wrong. Over the years, I've developed a phrase which has helped me try to extract from people the information I need. It's tell me the problem that you want to solve, not the solution you want to fix. Is anybody here familiar with the XY problem? That's basically the definition of the XY problem. Somebody's finished reading it. So sometimes somebody comes along and says, I want to do this with that, which in itself is sensible, but sometimes this is a chocolate-covered banana, and sometimes that is integration of European currency systems. It just doesn't make sense. So we get people coming in and they're asking about, how can I solve this problem? But they're not telling you what the problem is. They're asking you, how can I fix my solution? And it takes time to dig through and get out of them what the actual problem is they're trying to solve. They say, no, 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 I don't have a bigger problem. If you didn't have a bigger problem, you wouldn't have a job. You wouldn't be doing whatever you're doing. You're trying to implement your solution. It's not working. You've come and asked for help. We need to know that problem before we can help fix your solution, because we don't know what your end goal is. Here's a little example. Most of these, and in fact, all of these examples, I've pulled out of the Django IRC logs. This person turns up and says, I want to show the fields of a JSON file in an HTML form. How can I do this with Django? Sounds pretty sensible. Not at all what it was asking for. I mean, you can do that. You can use a JSON file to tell you what fields to build and what values they can be and all the rest of it. 24 minutes later, you finally get out. So what you really want to do is, how can I present a form to edit my settings, predefined fields, which are stored in JSON? That's a much easier problem to solve, but it's not the one he presented as up front. Ah, this one. Yep, sounds like you've all had it. I've got an error. Oh, really? Any particular error? Just one on holiday? No? Be clear, be specific, give us details. Details are great. Details are important. As it says in the topic of the Django channel, give us your code and a full traceback of what went wrong. Then we can start debugging. Oftentimes, somebody will come in and say, I'm doing this by doing that. They'll tell you the problem. They'll tell you how what their solution is. And it's not right. It's the wrong way to go about it. And you tell them it's not right. And they say, not doing it wrong. If you're not doing it wrong, why isn't it working? Why are you asking for help if you're not doing it wrong? Oftentimes I'll try to assert that the tool is broken, but, well. Some people try to come along and describe their problem in an abstract way, rather than specifically what they're trying to do. And sometimes this is a good choice because you don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of what your names are and why other people can't understand it because you're writing in French. Fine. One person came and asked this. And so we sort of went, oh, yeah, okay, kinda. It all makes sense on the surface of it. And a little while later, I got out of them what they were really trying to do. They had this table of ranks to allow users to rank games. And he said, I want all the unranked games for a specific user. Now, this suddenly becomes a lot easier to solve because I can imagine what you're doing. It now takes on a real conceptual form for me. As soon as that description came out, the answer was obvious. He had his problem solved, and he was on his way. It was great. But that took a while to get out. This is my personal bugbear. Somebody comes along and says, I got a problem, I need to solve it. And you go, okay, well, if that is your problem, then you solve it doing this. And I go, yeah, that'd work, but I can't do this. Oh, okay. Well, then you'll have to do it this way. Yeah, but I can't because I have to do this. Ad nauseum. And they just drip, drip, drip more constraints instead of telling you up front what all the limits are so you can provide them a solution that actually matches their constraints. But they can't see why you're getting annoyed with them. So rather than just be all negative, and I was possibly going to not do all that negative stuff, how can we do better? Remember that we're all volunteers. Nobody is obliged to help you. Nobody owes you anything. If you come into the channel and you ask for help, and somebody tries to help, there is no obligation for them to stick around and finish helping you. And if you're difficult to help, they're just not going to want to. It's not worth your time. If I was in a business situation and I was being paid to help you, that's a different game. This one amazes me. People come in and they ask, oh, if I did this, would that work? Would this be a problem? Suck it and see, as we used to say in Sparky School. Does it work? Try it out. Most of the time, these people are asking things that would be quicker to test than it would be to ask about it. Try it. Did you get the results? Then come and say, hey, I tried this, I got this result. Is this the right way to go? Or, it didn't work out the way I wanted. What can I do? We'll always like somebody who has A, read the docs, and B, tried something, because then you've got somewhere to work from. Hey, this duck turned up again. Anybody here familiar with the process of rubber ducking? Okay, it comes from the story of a person who had a rubber duck on his desk so that when he ran into a problem, he would describe the problem to his rubber duck. And it's a strange thing that a lot of brain science people will explain to you in depth if you ever get them drinking at a party, which they do a lot. Just having to formulate your problem into verbal language, not typed language, not thoughts, changes the problem in your mind. Having to realize how much you have to explain to somebody else will make you think about it in a different way, and this can help you solve problems. It did yesterday for somebody I was talking to. I do it frequently. I know you've been a target. I'll just turn to people I know on IRC and say, do you mind quacking for me for a bit? Soundboarding is another description. Somebody described it as Turing's teddy bear, and I like that idea because Turing needs a few more things dedicated to him. Answer our questions. Because when you come and ask your question, we're going to need more detail. You're going to stimulate a bunch of questions from us. Yes, all of our questions. No, not the questions you thought we asked or think we're trying to get at. The ones we actually asked, because we're not mind readers. We can't look at your code through the net. We're not going to admit to being able to hack into your computer. You've got to help us. It's a two-way thing. This comes back to make life easier for the people helping you. And don't waste our time, because it's our time, and it's not paid for. It's not your time. If you come in and you ask a question, don't sit around. If we ask you questions, actually come back with the answers. Don't waffle on about, again, what you think the problem is. We had this guy come in. I said, look, I'm going to need more details. He says, like what? Okay, good. We're getting somewhere. He's willing to give details. I need to know your URL conf. I need to know this. Maybe some more details about how you've configured that. Graham wasn't available to pester about mod WSGI. We miss you, Graham. And anything else. I mean, is anything even working in your project? Nothing. And if you look at the timestamps there, you'll see that's another 8 minutes, 9 minutes later. And he comes up and says, right, somebody says, hey, I've had my time wasted before by people who are just saying, I just removed the unimportant stuff, until it turned out to be critical to their problem. And he's going, no, I'm sensitive to the needs. I'm understanding that I don't want to waste people's time. And we still didn't get a paste. For another 5 minutes later, that person did not make it easy to help. I mean, we asked for the information. It wasn't a lot of information to give. It still took 15 minutes to get any information out of them, despite them saying they don't want to waste people's time. If you don't believe me that it's very hard to help people, and as I said, I've had a lot of practice. I've been doing this not just in the Django community for 8 years. I used to help on a general coding channel for about 7 years before that. Come along and try it out yourself. Anyone can help out on IRC. Sure, you may feel some performance anxiety because there are a lot of people watching you, but much rather have people trying to help out than not. Try it. Please come and help. You've all got wonderful experience there. And although somebody was saying, hey, you'll come and hire this consultant because we know more than you, it's because you know other things than me. I know a lot of things about my fields. You know a lot of things about your fields. If we get the right people in there, we know everything about everything. But that's going to take a lot of people. An important thing to remember when you're helping people is sometimes exposition is a really good thing. Explaining a lot more detail about the problem or the solution than you might at first think is necessary, even when you think the other person understands it, because you're talking to more than just that person. There's everyone else in the channel at the time, which is usually floating between 400 to 600 people, and there's everybody reviewing the logs afterwards, which includes Google. So, hey, that's it. I've probably gone incredibly quickly, have I? We've got some time for questions, but before we go to the questions, I'd like to point out something that happened earlier today. I think it's kind of important for everyone to think about. I got here early and I ran into Russell, and I was in a strange headspace, and Russell said to me, "Hey, are you okay? How are you doing? How are things with you? Are you in a good place?" And we had a little chat about how things were and so on. But both of us agree that there's a lot more people realising or establishing that they have some sort of mental health issue one way or another. Depression is incredibly common. There's Beyond Blue to help and so on. But sometimes all it takes is somebody to stop and ask. I wasn't in a particularly bad spot, but I had been recently, and it's nice to have people just stop and ask. It doesn't take much. There is an initiative called Blue Hackers. It's worth looking into, and just in the general sense, I think we can all help each other out that way. Anyway, questions?
So yeah, again, thank you very much, Curtis, and please form a queue at the mic if you want to ask questions. Getting the ball rolling here. So how did you get over your performance anxiety asking the first time? I mean, I know you have been doing it for a long time. You said you've been doing it for a long time, and you've said, everybody, hey, just come and do it. But there is that performance anxiety for the first time. How did you get over it?
I think what happened was I wound up in the channel, started asking questions because I needed help. And then after a while, you build up your own body of knowledge of where you feel confident that you know the right answers. Now, when I started there was somebody who was in channel all the time, helping out a lot, who eventually kind of got pushed out of the community somewhat because they could be a bit abrasive at times, which is, I find kind of interesting because I modeled my behavior in there on them and I wasn't asked to leave. And it's why actually at first I didn't think I had a chance with the Tridenic prize, because I could be a bit abrasive. As it says, why is Funky Pop angry with me? I get angry. I get really angry. And I sometimes shout and people go, oh, I don't like it when he shouts. But I need to work on that. That's my issue. But yeah, you get confidence just in knowing what you know. And sometimes it's just a matter of doing what you know would be the right thing to do when you see that problem, which is go and hit Google and read the docs. I think a lot of people have been trained out of reading the docs because of projects with shitty docs. And now we need to retrain them. Go look at them. They will answer your questions. If they don't, then come and ask us.
Just some advice on helping people.
Yeah.
When you're given a problem, do you give the person, here's the specific solution, or do you give them a vague, maybe have a look at this, or...
That really depends on the person and the problem. If the person seems like they really know what they're doing, I mean, if it's somebody I've established I know, and I know that I can just, you know, they've got a specific problem and they need a specific solution on the spot, and they clearly understand all the rest of it, but there's something they've stumbled onto that maybe is a bug or a gotcha, then I'll just give them that little bit. But in general, I try to make sure that everybody, I'm not there as a person to do your work. I'm there as I want to help people learn more. So my focus is definitely go look here on this subject. Sometimes, yeah, a lot of people just need the keywords to know what to search for. So you say, okay, here's the link, go and read about this. Here's the link, go read about this. Here's some concepts on how you're going to join those things together. I want you to figure it out. Because otherwise you just build a dependency on me. And that's not good for either of us.
Yeah, thanks.
So you were talking about the problems with people being slow to reply on IRC. I'm curious what your opinion is on IRC versus mailing lists for that kind of support. Like, is the enforced asynchronousness of a mailing list better for that kind of thing?
What I see on mailing lists is people tend to, because they know that there's going to be a longer time between question response, you do tend to get a lot more upfrontness about the information they're providing. But actually, to be honest, I don't spend a lot of time on mailing lists, so I don't have a lot of comparison. Yeah, but my experience has been generally, because people know the extended latency, you don't have this problem quite so much. Even so, it's quite regular to see on the Django dev mailing list, somebody put in a request, and then Russell will be there 10 minutes later saying, you want to ask on Django users. So, yeah. Sometimes people just don't read the outline first.
Yeah. On sort of a different topic. Like I've had a lot of problems in designing migrations, and people going, "I've got a problem with migrations. What is it?" Things break, and then the same kind of problem happen. Like, well, we need to work out why. And people like, and same thing. Like people go, "Oh, here's an ABC set of models," and this, and like the same kind of difficult to reproduce. And like, do you think there's potentially some value in having a sort of a more standard document or something that says these things more upfront? Like, try not to anonymize, try to give us more information, like, and explaining why and giving reasoning, or that
yeah, I think
it?
What is your end goal is frequently the question that needs to be shunted in front of people. Why are you doing this? What is the task you've been assigned, and so on. Yeah, I mean, there are a number of support forums that have their standard format query, which is what were you trying to do, what did you expect to happen, what actually happened, and that is sometimes the set of questions we have to ask people. Whoops, run out of time. So yeah, sometimes, I mean, it does become reflex after a while of asking people the same old questions over and over again, just to try and get the information out. And that, it took a while to come up with the right words that are universally accepted as step back and tell me the real problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Curtis.